Let's talk about rehabbing the hip joint. So, when we are getting back into activities after surgery or an injury, especially to the hip joint, we want to focus on passive range of motion first, increasing that capacity, and then working up to more active ranges of motion with higher levels of exertion. So, we basically just want the tissues of the hip capsule to readjust and modify back to movement and load. So part one is going to be lying on the ground, and we're going to go into some passive ranges of motion and do some isometrics there. And then part two is going to be standing up. So if you are new to your rehab journey, lying down on the floor, doing some of these stretches is going to be just enough for you. And if we are comfortable with standing up once again, then you can move on to part two with the standing versions of very similar stretches. So let's start with hip external rotation. So you're gonna lie on your side, and we'll use something like a strap. You could wrap a towel around your foot as well. We may also need some yoga blocks for these movements. So get yourself comfortable on the floor, and we're gonna lie on your side. So if I'm working the right hip, I'm gonna lie on my right hip, and then I'm gonna stick my leg out 90 degrees in front of me. So the left leg can be bent with the bottom foot on the floor. It can be extended this way, pressing into the floor. You can place that left foot on a yoga block to help get a little bit more contact with the ground here without feeling like you need to bend your knee. And so we're gonna wrap the strap around your right foot or your towel. You're gonna lie all the way on your side, and then you're gonna pull your foot up towards the ceiling. So that's putting my hip in external rotation. You want to choke up on that strap as much as you can, and we want to try to relax the hip as much as possible. So try not to actively pull up with the hip. We want to stack those hips. Left hip is stacked right on top of the right hip, and we're going to pull into this rotation and stay here for quite a while. Now I want you to look at your ankle. Make sure that that ankle is flexed, so the toes are pulling up towards the shin, right? And you could even pull with two hands here. You can place a yoga block underneath the head and pull with two hands up into that rotation. If you're close enough, you could even grab that foot with your hand. So the goal is to turn the top of the thigh. If I have a thumbs up on the top of my thigh, I'm turning that towards the floor. That's going to be my hip external rotation. So the hip doesn't necessarily move, but we are rotating the femur within that hip joint. Now, if we feel like we're getting really tired in our upper body in this position, if you have this accessible to you, you can bring this left knee underneath that right leg where we're stretching into that external rotation here. The only thing with that is we want to make sure that we're pushing that rotation, trying to go further and further into it. I'm also going to bring some contact to the top of my right knee by pushing it down towards the floor and away from me. So my left knee is kind of pushing my right foot up, and my left hand is pushing my right knee down and away to really isolate that rotation in the right hip. I'm going to get a little deeper into this, using that left hand to pull up and pushing that right hand away. Now you could also, if we're not that far into that rotation, you could grab a yoga block to place under that leg. That's going to help passively stretch even more, right? So once we're in our end range here, we're going to work some isometrics. So first, you're going to perform some PALs, so progressive tissues, which are the opposite of what we're actively using to get into this stretch. So basically the muscles that are being stretched. We are going to use those muscles and tissues to try and push out of this stretch. So I'm going to push my right foot into my left hand as if I'm trying to internally rotate, as if I'm trying to bring that right foot to the ground. However, my left hand or whatever is in contact with that right shin or foot is not allowing that to happen. And we're working with light ranges of tension here, somewhere between 5 and 10% of your max. Because we're rehabbing, we are just very slowly ramping up work in the tissues and the muscles. And we're going to keep that isometric contraction going for a long period of time. So I'm still pushing into that hand with that light amount of tension. So when we're rehabbing, we use light amounts of tension for a longer period of time to get those tissues to adapt back to movement. So now let's reverse that. Now you're going to keep your hand or your strap or whatever's there, and you're going to try to rotate and bring that foot closer to your left shoulder. So I'm trying to actively pull my right heel towards my left shoulder, again, using that 5 to 10% effort, and just trying to find those tissues that are going to be doing that. So I'm feeling my inner thigh here, feeling some stretch in the outer part of my hip. Hold that for 3, 2, 1, and then release the tension. See if you can get a little bit further into that stretch. Make sure that that foot is nice and flexed. Bring some reinforcements if you need. Place this under my left foot. So now we're going to do that again. So now I'm going to push into my left hand, trying to internally rotate out of that stretch. Good. 3, 2, 1, and reverse it. Try to pull further, trying to externally rotate without pulling with that left hand. Try to find those tissues to actively pull further into that stretch. I feel my left leg pushing down to try to help. I feel my right hand pushing down to try to help. And release that tension. See if you can get a little further into that stretch. We're almost there. And here we go. Last time, push into that left hand like you're trying to internally rotate out of that position. Keep pushing. Hold on. 3, 2, 1. And now reverse it. Try to pull further into that stretch. Find those tissues. We're increasing the capacity of this passive range. Keep rotating for 3, 2, 1. Release the tension and then very slowly come out of that position. And we're going to switch hips. So we're going to do our external rotation on the left side. So now we're going to do the same steps to set up on this side. So whatever is your most comfortable position, you can start with the strap. You can bend this knee this way. You could bring the right knee under that left foot. Whatever is going to get you in the most comfortable stretch position, right? If you can reach that foot, go ahead and pull it into more external rotation. In that case, you wouldn't really need the strap. You could press into that left knee. And then let's pay attention to this back leg as well. If it is extended on top of a block or another surface, then we want to actively drive down into the floor with that leg. So at the same time, we're working the external rotation of this hip. We're also working the extension and the adduction of this back leg. So we're pushing down and making sure those glutes are engaged to help recruit more tissues to achieve the task of that external rotation on the left leg, and also to add some stress to that supporting hip and get a little extra work in there. So we're breathing into this stretch. Deep breaths here. Okay, I'm going to use both hands to pull a little bit further. This is my good side. Make sure those hips are nice and stacked. We don't want that top hip rolling away. And here we go. Let's start some isometric. So we're going to push that left foot as if we're trying to push out of that stretch, right? But whatever is supporting that left foot is not going to allow that to happen. Keep pushing for 3, 2, 1, and now reverse it. Try to actively pull further into that stretch. Keep that right leg driving down. We're using 5 to 10% of our max effort. We're holding for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release the tension. See if we can pull a little further into that stretch. Make sure that left foot stays active, nice and flexed. And then let's do that again. Push down like you're trying to internally rotate out of that position. Feeling the outer part of the hip really pushing and working to try to rotate. We're basically with this movement creating more space in the hip capsule so that we can get deeper into the external rotation when we reverse that tension. Keep pushing down for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then reverse it. Try to pull further into that stretch. Right? We just created more space in that hip capsule. So now hopefully we're able to find a little bit more activation in the tissues in the inner part of the hip to pull further into this stretch. 3, 2, 1, and then release the tension. See if we could pull a little further into that stretch. And we're going to do that one more time. As you exhale, push down into that strap. Like we're trying to internally rotate out of that stretch. Keep pushing for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and reverse it. Activating those tissues. Feel the inner thigh. Feel work on the outside of that hip as well, trying to rotate further into that stretch. Press that right leg down into the block. Keep rotating. 3, 2, 1. Release the tension and then very slowly come out of that stretch. So we want to get into our passive range over an extended period of time and then work those isometrics once we are all the way in that stretch. So now let's work some internal rotation. We're going to stay on the floor and we're going to start on some yoga blocks with the hips. So we're going to lie face down and the hips are going to be on top of the yoga blocks. We're going back to the right hip and my right leg is going to be out to the side. So my hips are on the blocks, right? You can also bring a block under your forehead. And then the right leg is going to be straight out to the side. So if that lifts your hip off of the yoga block, then you can put another yoga block under that hip. Or if you're close enough, you can try to stretch down, driving that right hip towards the yoga block there. And if that feels really good, then you can just do this without the yoga block altogether. So you can just lie face down. Left leg is straight down from the left hip. Right leg is straight out from the right hip. It's okay if it's a little bit lower here, but we're aiming for that right hip to drive down towards the floor or the yoga block. And we're going to take our strap. And again, you can wrap this around your foot before you get into this position as well. And we're going to pull up into, this time, hip internal rotation. So as you go into this stretch, we're now trying to rotate the top of that right thigh down towards the floor. That's going to pull us into internal rotation. We're easing into this stretch. Keep that right hip driving down into the floor. I also want you to think about pulling the right hip almost away from that right knee so that we don't get the hip kind of flipping up to the side, right? We want the hip to be pulling this direction away from the knee and down into the ground so that we are isolating that rotation from the hip. Keep that knee bent at 90 degrees, so don't let that foot pull out to the side. And we're breathing here into this stretch. If this feels really easy, you could slide that leg up a little bit higher. Same thing though, we're pulling the hip away from the knee, trying to keep that knee bent at 90 degrees. If we need some contact with that foot, then you can place that foot on a yoga block, right? And try to stretch there. And then you can also put your hand on the foot and take that to rotate a little bit further. Just make sure that that doesn't turn the torso so much that we take away from the hip. We want the chest to continue to face the floor. So we're going to breathe into that stretch. Then we're going to work some isometrics here in this position. So once again, we're going to push into that hand as if we're trying to rotate out of that stretch. So I'm going to push my heel down as if I'm trying to externally rotate. Okay, again, working at 5 to 10%. Go ahead and push into that hand. We're going to feel the outside of the hip trying to pull further into that external rotation. It's going to automatically drive that hip a little bit further away from the knee. Don't let that hand move. 3, 2, 1, and now reverse it. Keep the hand there, but try to take the foot out of the hip without letting those hips go all over the place. Try to take the foot out of the hand without letting those hips shift out of place. Keep lifting for 3, 2. So we're really feeling the outer part of the hip do this motion as well. And then release the tension. See if you can get a little further into that stretch. And we're going to go again, pushing down into that hand, 5 to 10% of your max effort. We're going to hold this for another 10 seconds. Keep finding those tissues that are going to help rotate that leg from the hip. 3, 2, 1, and then reverse it. Try to take it out of that hand. 3, 2, 1, and then release the tension. Try to pull just a little bit further. Okay, we're going to do that one more time. And go ahead, push down into that hand. Externally rotating out of that. Keep pushing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then try to reverse it. Try to take it out of that hand, trying to find more internal rotation actively. Keep rotating. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release that tension. We'll slowly come on out of it, and we can switch sides. So now we'll go with that left hip internally rotated. Find whatever you need to find to get yourself into that position using the strap, right? We can place our foot in the strap. Before we start to get into that position, we can place the block underneath the hips. We can also take a block underneath this back foot if that's where our stretch is, right? We want the hip to be relaxed in that passive range. So it's not about how far the leg can rotate. We are just trying to engage those tissues after not moving while you were injured. Okay, so we've got our position here. We're slowly stretching into that. Keep that foot flexing. Drive that left hip into the floor and also pull that left hip away from the left knee. Keep that right leg driving into the floor. Keep that left foot active, so we're flexing that foot. Pulling into that passive range. All right, so let's start to work our isometrics here. First, we're going to push into that left hand or the strap, like you're trying to come out of that position. Working at 5 to 10% of your max. Keep breathing and push for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now try to reverse that. Try to pull out of that left hand, actively working to internally rotate that leg more. Dive into your hip and imagine that you're really trying to rotate that femur bone within the hip joint. 3, 2, 1. Release the tension. See if you can get further into that stretch. And let's do that again. Push into that left hand or the strap. Like you're trying to come out of that rotation. Keep pushing for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and reverse it. Trying to take it out of that left hand or the strap. Cramping is common. If you're feeling some cramping here, that's okay. Just try to release some of that tension and then get back into it. Hold that for another 5, 3, 2, 1. Release that tension. See if we can get a little further into that stretch. We're almost there. We're going to do that one more time. Take a deep breath. As you exhale, push into that hand or that strap like you're trying to externally rotate. Keep pushing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And reverse.
Trying to take it out of that hand, actively trying to find those tissues in the hip to rotate more. Keep rotating for 3, 2, 1. Release that tension, and then we can slowly come on out of it.
All right, nice job. So as you can see, rehab and mobility work is not a quick fix. It can be tedious at times, but slow and steady wins the race. The more time we spend under tension, the more time you work on working these passive ranges and isometrics within those passive ranges, the quicker your recovery is going to be and the quicker you can get back to your everyday activities without pain. If you have any questions about this video, drop them in the comments below, and I will see you next time.